And we're on. This is the Let's Talk Cheer podcast, and I'm your host, JasonLarkins, where we talk cheer, we talk life, and we talk whatever comes to mind. 5, 6, 7, 8, let's get started.
Turn it up, you tuning into Let's Talk Cheer with JasonLarkins. We're talking cheer, we're talking like you know we're always talking. So listen up, you boy, about to go all in. 5, 6, 7, 8, we're on, let's begin.
This is episode number 99. Not sure if there's going to be a 100, but thank you for joining. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different. With it being our 99th episode, I wanted to give you guys more of an inside look behind the origins of the podcast, my thoughts when making an episode, and then just share with you guys some things that we don't normally get to share with you guys on a week-to-week basis. So I actually had an AI program generate some questions for me to answer. So I'll be answering those, and it's going to be a great time. As always, I want to welcome all of our new listeners. Very, very glad that you are here with us today. Again, as I said last week, but it bears repeating, this is a different episode for us. We typically spend most of our episodes talking about the cheer industry from a coach's perspective. We also usually have Brittany on, who shares her thoughts from a cheer parent's perspective. And then every few weeks, we have on an awesome guest, typically an industry leader, who shares their story on how they became who they are today. So if it is your first time here checking out the show, you have 99 other episodes to catch up on, but don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss any more. And for everyone else who's been rocking with us for a while, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. We obviously post clips from the show there, but we've also been doing lots of other fun videos and giveaways. So again, follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. Shout out to my mother, Sheila, Claire, Sarah, Robin, Adriana, Chanel, Tamara, myself, my not-so-mysterious supporter, Heather Peterson of Flipside, Pablo, representing for all the cheer dads out there, our mate, Michelle, Mike, the lean, mean coaching machine, Heidi, and our newest supporter, Adam. Adam, it truly means a lot that you donate to the podcast. And if you want to financially support the show, you can do so for as little as 99 cents a month. And every donation means a ton to the show. And we use all of that for a better listening experience and now viewing experience for you guys at home. Link in the show notes, link in the description. For those of you guys looking for the best free way to support the podcast, all you have to do is share the podcast, send it to a friend, send it to another coach, or post it on your social media. And by posting it on your social media, you are entered to win a free coach's training with yours truly. All you have to do is take a screenshot of an episode of the podcast, post that on your Instagram story, and then tag our Instagram in the post. That is it. Share the post on your story and tag the Let's Talk Cheer podcast in the post, and you are entered. The winner will be announced in next episode 100. The more shares, the more entries. Someone is going to win. Why not you? I'm the cheer director at American Cheer, AKSC.com, sharing with you my life, running a program, managing a staff, coaching the athletes, and working with the parents. And on the other side of the microphone is a guy who started this podcast 3 years ago in his closet, recording on his iPhone, not knowing if there was going to be an episode number 2. Without further ado, I bring to you Jason Larkins. All right, here we go, guys. Episode 99. And like I said in the prologue, I had an AI program generate some questions for this episode so we can kind of reflect and look back and see where we've been, where we want to go, and some of the highs and the lows, and just everything about where the podcast has been and how we started and everything. So here we go. We'll hop straight into it. Question number 1: why did you start the podcast, and how has the original purpose changed or evolved over time? So why did I start the podcast? Well, really, the podcast is an extension of the blog that I used to have. So I used to write a blog, and I liked writing the blog. I really liked getting my ideas out into the world and sharing my perspective on just the industry and just different things that I saw. It was really hard for me to like really stay consistent with the blog because I wasn't sure. I was super meticulous on just everything when it came, like every single word and comma and phrase. I was very, very meticulous on it. So it was really hard for me to write blogs consistently because it took me forever to like pump one out because I was just super meticulous on everything. I know that people are a lot more forgiving when it comes to like videos and audio like that. So this has been a better format for me. Now, I said this like in episode 1 that there was a TikTok I had came across, and it said something like, and I started the podcast April 2020. So it's middle of quarantine, right? We're all locked in our houses, not doing anything, right? And so I remember just being on TikTok, and someone had said, the video I came across said something like, if you don't come out of quarantine with a new side hustle or a new like hobby or a new skill, then it wasn't, time wasn't your enemy. It was your discipline. And I was like, yeah, that's right. Like, I need to make sure that I like come out of this thing with something, new and exciting or whatever. Right. So podcast has always been kind of on my mind, and lots of people had encouraged me to do one. And I was like, I can do this, because I really like getting my ideas out into the world and sharing my perspective. And seemingly people liked hearing my ideas. So we had a couple of those blogs that, did some real numbers. And so I was like, okay. And so a couple things had happened in the industry that I wanted to react to. And so, I reacted and, did, I think the first blog or the first podcast was, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or so, and did that. And I was like, all right, released it. And then something else a couple weeks, like 2 weeks later, something else happened in the industry. And so I gave my response to that. And then like a week later, something else happened in the industry. And so things were happening. And so, I just kept responding and people were listening. And so I just kept doing it. And now, here we are. Obviously, we've moved on, and now we have Brittany, and now it's, it's a weekly show, and we have a lot more structure now than we did before. But it really just started, with me just reacting to things, recording on my iPhone. So, all right, here we go. Let's move on to question number 2. How did you and Brittany meet, and what made you decide to bring her on as your co-host? Great question. Again, these are AI generated. These are actually really good questions for being AI generated. So Brittany, obviously co-host of the Let's Talk Cheer podcast. Brittany's in our program here at American. She has two daughters, Kensley and Rylan, in the program, and they're I think they're on our youth 3. Not I think they're on our youth 3 and our youth 1. And so Brittany's been in the program forever now. It's, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. And what happened with Brittany is, again, when I first did the podcast, it was really inconsistent and just kind of putting out episodes sporadically. And so Brittany and I, again, this is middle of quarantine, and we're all hurting for content, and not just for the podcast. I think everyone who had like an Instagram account, right? And I'm running the American Cheer Instagram account at the time. And we're just hurting to put out content and stay like kind of relevant in cheerleading, at the time. And so Brittany and I did hey, let's do like let's go live on Instagram and do like a ask a coach. And so she came up with a bunch of different questions that she wanted to ask me that were going to be, questions that cheer moms want to know about either myself or just coaching cheerleading or being a director, right? And so I was like, great. So we went live on IG, on our Instagram page, and she asked me these questions, and we went, and it was great. We had a good time. We laughed a bunch, and it was a lot of fun. And I was like, oh, we should do this again. And I really thought it was really cool. I was like, oh, that'd be really cool if I brought her on the podcast to do like this same thing. She could come up with another set of questions, and she'll be a guest on the show, and we'll go ahead and do that. And so I brought her on the show, and we had another great time. We had a great time. She had a list of questions, and we had a great time on the show, and it was great. And I was like, man, and I was really struggling because much the way I'm struggling right now, this is the first solo episode I have done in a very long time, which is exactly why I have Brittany on the show. It's so much easier for me to, and that's why I learned doing that Instagram live the first time and bringing Brittany on the second time. It's so much easier for me to have a conversation with someone and record the conversation opposed to me having to just talk, stare into the camera, talking to the microphone all by myself, right? And I'm learning that today. I've already had to redo the opening like 8,000 times because Brittany's not here. Anyway, but we're doing good so far, guys. We're doing all right so far. But I realized it'd be a lot easier for me just to talk with Brittany than to just stare off into the camera and talking to the microphone all by myself, right? And so I was like, Brittany, we should do this like on a normal, regular basis, right? And so I brought Brittany back on, and I think at the time we were recording every other week, and so that went really well. And I'm not even sure if I answered the question, but yeah, what made me decide to bring her on as a co-host? Brittany has always been really cool. She's always been a really good parent in the gym. She's never sent me any crazy emails. Her kids are always at practice, and I get along with it. The few interactions we had at the time. Obviously we talk a lot more now, but at the time, the interactions we had were always positive ones. So I figured, hey, yeah, why not? Let's bring her on. And it's been really good. And the show would not be the show without Brittany, who, like I say this every episode, but she represents all the cheer parents and she asks questions. Like I make sure, like if Brittany understands, it gives me the sense that parents understand, right? Like she's my barometer as far as, understanding cheerleading, because I know I can go off on super tangents or I can start speaking Chinese on people and they're just like, what the heck is Jason talking about when it comes to like cheerleading stuff? So, Brittany's been great. We wouldn't be the show we are without her. Looking back at all the episodes you've produced, which one stands out as your favorite and why? I've said this numerous times on the show. I really don't go back and listen to the episodes. I mean, back in the day, I used to actually, when I was editing the podcast, right, I'd be listening as I'm editing, right? So I'm like, I don't need to go back and like re-listen after I've already edited it. So I used to listen to them a lot more in the early days. I don't listen to them anymore. I figure, I'm sitting there recording it and I don't need to listen to it. But there have been a few that I've listened to. I say all that to say the only one I've listened to several times probably, and by several, probably like around 3 times, has been the NCA one. I really like the NCA episode. It just has good, I tell several stories in the episode, and it's just like a good, and it ends like on a happy note. Both Senior Black and Senior Red both end up, winning NCA that year. And there's just the drama because Brinkley wasn't there, and all the other drama because of all the flights, and it was just like a fun, like story, and about a competition that we all hold like in such esteem, that I thought was a really good episode. And I just like listening to it, or I liked listening to it, just like, it just puts me in a good mood, like, thinking about that trip and everything we went through, and to still come out victorious and all this. So if you haven't listened to the NCA episode from like about a year ago, go ahead and listen to it. I'm not sure what episode number it was, but it was a good one. It is one of my favorite ones that we've done. But most shows I really do like. I really do like most of the shows that we do. There haven't been a lot where I was like, I really don't like that one. What kind of guest do you typically invite onto your show, and what criteria do you use to determine who you invite? Okay, so what kind of guests do I typically invite onto the show? Typically, they are my friends. There haven't been a lot of guests that I've invited who I didn't have like a prior relationship with. I didn't really know Les Stella. Obviously, I knew who Les Stella was before I invited him on the show. I didn't really know Danielle Donovan, the owner of CheerFit. She came on the show. Um, Heidi from All Star Worlds. I didn't really know before. But most people who I invite on the show, I have they're either like, one of my friends, or it's usually like who I start with, right? Like my friends or people who I have like a real relationship with. Like Romel's a good example of, we met at the tumbling clinic in Dallas. So I went to the tumbling clinic in Dallas. He was one of the instructors there. We met, we talked for a while, we hit it off, we had a good time. We were staying in the same hotel, so we'd go down and just hang out every night, right? So I think like, 2-3 nights in a row, we were going down hanging out. And so since I knew the other instructors there, like I've been friends with the other instructors there forever. Romel's the only one I really didn't know. And so we talked, and it was like, dude, man, this guy's really cool. And I kind of thought out, hey, you should come on the show sometime. It'd be great to hear your story, right? So things happen like that. John Davenport, another guy, we've competed against each other forever since, back in the PCM days. So we met kind of through that, just through like the competitive spirit. And so most people are like, people who I've actually had a relationship with, and I like having those guests on the show, because we get to talk about, things that I think would be interesting for the audience to hear. Like, I'll bring up John Davenport again. With John Davenport, it was cool for me to be like, hey man, like I stole your pyramid that one time, right? And we get to laugh and kind of joke about that. And, I've known Monica forever. Monica Aldama, coach from Navarro. So I've known her forever, like literally 20 years. I've known Monica, or close to 20 years. And, it was cool just to bring up old school things with her. And she's like, hey, remember this and da da da. And so that's why I like having like people on that I actually know, because I get to ask them or bring up like funny situations. And it doesn't have to be so like, sometimes you see like celebrities go on talk shows where the two really don't know each other. So they kind of have like these like canned like questions, but it's not like really personal. Like I feel like the interview is always better when they have like some real personal questions or like things that like to bring up to them. So, yeah, I guess that kind of answers that questions, but I guess I'll start to venture out and ask some more people to come on the show. But I've liked having like people that I know and consider friends on the show. Like Brendan's another great example. Jordan Alcazar is another great example of like, why I thought those interviews went so well. All right, number 5. What is one guest you haven't had on the show yet but would love to interview in the future? Why do they interest you? The one guest we haven't had on that I would love to have on the show is Justin Carrier. That is for sure. He's Mr. Cheerleading, right? Like he's Mr. Cheerleading. That's why I know I've made it. When Justin comes on this show, and I thought we had him. We actually did have him at one point. So I had emailed him once or twice. I remember I emailed him one time and he's like, I'm just too busy to come on to do anything right now. And for those of you guys who don't know, Justin Carrier, he is I'm not even sure what all his titles are, honestly. Like he's the vice president of NCA, and he's like something else with varsity, and he's, at USASF. He has every single title in the world. I mean, he is Mr. Cheerleading, right? And so I'd asked him one time, and he's, I'm just too busy right now to come on the show, but I'm not, opposed to it. And I was like, hey, he didn't totally say no. He just said he's too busy. And then I asked him again after NCA, and he kind of just didn't answer me. Like, I had said something. I sent some other email and asked him, and he kind of just like didn't answer the question. Like, he answered all my other questions except for, will you come on the show? And I was like, okay. And then I ran into him at the summit. I ran into him at NCA. and had mentioned something. So this is before I emailed him. Ran into him at NCA, kind of mentioned him being on the pod, and he wasn't totally opposed to it, and he kind of said something like, well, I got to ask, some other people to see if I can come on. And then I asked him in the email, never said anything back. So then I see him at Summit, and I'm like, man, how many times are you going to make me ask you if you're going to be on the podcast? And he's like, you know what? I'll really think about it. I got to get it approved from whoever. And I'm like, cool. And so I'd asked Damian Albee. A lot of you guys know who Damian is. If you don't know who she is, I'm not going to explain who she is. But I'd asked Damian Albee to be on the pod. And she's like, I would love to, but again, we have to, and she works for Varsity. I will tell you that. And she's like, I got to ask, but we'll see. But I'd love to come on, but I got to ask, I'll let you know. So then Damian texted me like the next week. It was like, hey, Justin and I both got approved to come on the podcast. And I'm like, let's go. I was pumped when I heard that. I was ecstatic when I heard that. And then I remember I had texted Damian about setting up a date, and she never got back to me. And then, but it's like the summer. I know people are busy or whatever. And then towards the end of the summer, everything with Scott Foster and Rockstar came out. And then Varsity was getting a lot of bad press. And at that point, I thought, it's not like I reached out to Justin after that. I just thought Justin will not be coming on the podcast anytime soon. So I figured I got to let that situation kind of die down some before I go ahead and ask Justin. Because I figured that was a no way in the world he'd be allowed to come on the pod after all that stuff came out. So, so we're still waiting, but yeah, he's the guy who I'd really, really like to have on the podcast. So Justin, if this ever makes it to you, I would love to have you on the pod, man. Let's go. But I do have one of my other people who I really want to have on the podcast just said yes. We just set a date. So he'll be coming on very, very soon. So I'm really, really excited about that one when that comes up. You'll know who it is as soon as you're listening to this, and then you'll see. You're like, that's exactly what he's talking about. All right, here we go. How do you decide on the topics and themes for each episode, and what factors influence those decisions? Aren't these really good questions for AI generated, right? These are really good questions. How do I decide on topics and themes for each episode? What factors influence those decisions? So yeah, it's really just what's going on in my life as far as cheerleading is concerned. So, well, I guess there's a couple things. There is things going on in the industry that I want to react to, right? Something happens, I have a particular take, and I have a take that I feel like I can actually elaborate on. So it has to be something I feel like I can elaborate on. And it has to be something that I feel like people would actually be interested in hearing. And then just kind of just talking about our actual, what's going on in the gym. Because so many times I've gotten DMs from coaches or owners who have said, thank you, I feel like I'm not the only one. Thank you for letting me know I'm not the only one dealing with this situation. So that has really helped because I just go, we're dealing with this and I'm really struggling with this team right now. And so when I talk about that and how we're kind of going through that, I know that that's really helped coaches not feel alone. So it's been, when things happen, I'm like, yeah, this is what's going on with this is the things that we're dealing with in the gym. And so that's really structured the show just to talk about, okay, what do we when I sit down and think about what I want to talk about in the episode, what am I dealing with and what am I struggling with as a coach that other coaches would, could possibly relate to, right? And how am I dealing with that? And the other thing has just been, the questions of the week. Question of the week has just been great. I'm not even sure how we originally came up with question of the week, but I guess someone must have sent in a question and I just decided to answer. I was like, hey, that was easy. Like, I could, if people send in questions, I could talk all day. Because that's the other hard part about the podcast is just coming up with like, what am I going to talk about next? And there's a billion things. Like, I know cheerleading like the back of my hand, but it's hard to just say like, what am I actually going to talk about this week? And so it's been cool. Question of the week has really been like, hey, here's a subject. Awesome. Someone actually sent in this question. Someone's actually interested in this, and I can actually talk about this, right? So question of the week has really, really helped. And then obviously now we do those different segments, which just basically give me like some structure for the show, right? We do the coach's comment where I'm just looking because I just see stuff online. And if you've listened for, amount of time, as much as I pump out lots of cheer material or material like content on here, I'm not a big fan of like hopping in the comments of like on these coaches pages, or when someone has a different opinion than me on whatever. I'm not a huge fan of like hopping and going back and forth in the comments. Doesn't mean I don't have an opinion about things. I just haven't been a big fan of it. And so it's been cool to like see something on an ASGA or any of the other coaches pages I'm on and be like, oh, I have an opinion about that, and let me like be able to really talk about it and flesh it out on the podcast, right? Or the what's popping with the parents. That's been fun, where I'm still able to. And for those of you, we haven't done that segment in a while, but Brittany sees something on one of her mom cheer group pages and goes like, hey Jason, you should like react to this and answer this. Oh, awesome. And so that's been a lot of fun. And so those things have really brought structure to the show and just make what I believe make for easier listening and following along for everyone who actually listens to the show. Brittany actually sent me one not too long ago that's actually pretty good, so we'll probably knock that out pretty soon. What kind of feedback? Only 4 more questions, guys. There we go. How long have we been talking? Not that long. This is gonna be a pretty short episode. What kind of feedback have you received from listeners, and how do you take that feedback into account when producing future episodes? We usually get pretty good feedback. I said earlier, like so many coaches have just said, thank you. I know that. Well, I guess I'll kind of answer on the next one. So I'll say this right here. I know so many coaches have just said like, Jason, thank you for letting me know that I'm not alone. Like so many coaches have said that. And there's one parent, or not parent, just someone who listens. Not sure if they're a parent or a coach or not, but someone had left like a negative review on the podcast and said something like I missed the boat when it comes to like varsity and like Scott Foster and Rockstar. Like I missed the point, right? And I was like kind of upset with that. And here's what I know of the feedback I've gotten. It's been mostly positive. I've only seen like a couple like negative things. I remember we did the surveys. There's some things I read in the surveys and I can't even remember it anymore. Honestly, I can't even remember what some of those surveys said, like any of the negative stuff. But I was like, I don't like which I brought back anyway. I don't like the intro music in and out, which will probably, I didn't do any breaks, so we'll probably have to do a break here pretty soon. I guess we'll get to a break after this question. But people say I don't like the intro music, or not the intro music, like the break in and out and da da da. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm just rambling. I don't know. I'm kind of skipping this question. We've had good feedback, and we had some people who have, there's highs and there's lows, but it's nature of the beast, it's a part about like what I've learned, especially coaching cheerleading, and especially in the position I am as the director, is that some people think you're a hero and some people think you're the villain, and so it just comes with the territory. My one of my best friends in the world, best man at my wedding, Baby J. He always used to say that nature of the beast, man. So it's the nature of the beast that it's some positive and some negative, and you listen to it and then you don't listen to it anymore. So, I did a terrible job answering that question. What have been some of the biggest surprises or unexpected moments during your time producing the podcast? Biggest surprises? Some of the biggest surprises have been the people who actually listen to the podcast. Now, I'm not surprised when, I don't know who's someone we've had on the show. Allie from CCE. Oh, Allie, y'all, shout out to Allie, my girl. They won NCA, whenever NCA was, last weekend or 2 weekends ago. So shout out to Y2K. Let's go. Let's go, dude. Great job, guys. So I'm so happy for her. Like, Allie, I'm so happy for you. You should be so proud. And, Sergeants was super close. So that's super cool. I'm just so proud of that program. I've talked about CCE, numerous times on the pod. And, one of the programs that we've worked with for years. So super cool to see them, come home with an NCA title. And shout out to Allie, the champ. Let's go. But anyway, it doesn't surprise me when I work with CCE, I have Allie on the podcast, and then families from CCE listen to the podcast, right? So when I go visit the gym and parents go, hey, I listen to the podcast, right? I'm not surprised that they listen, right? Because we've worked with the program for years, and I've had Allie on the podcast, and so people from their program listens. That doesn't surprise me. What surprises me is when I have my actual friends who listen to the podcast. That surprises me, right? It I remember Shay told me he listened to the podcast, and I've brought up Shay a billion times on the pod. And I remember Shay's like, yeah, I listen every week. And I'm like, wow, it doesn't surprise me anymore that he listens, but when he first told me that he listens, I was like, oh, you listen, that's cool. And he's like, yeah, I listen every week. That really surprised me. Who else told me? I had another friend. Some of you guys, if you're a coach, you know who she is. Stephanie Broadback told me that she listens to the podcast the other day. She just DM'd me. It's like, yeah, I listen to it. I listen to it all the time. And that really surprised me that, Stephanie would be at home and be like, you know what? I'm going to listen to the Let's Talk Cheer podcast right now. So it always surprises me, when my friends listen to it. And even more that I have friends in the industry. And I'm not sure if they actually listen to it a lot. But friends who aren't in the industry say I've had several friends who aren't in the industry say they've listened to the podcast, and I'm always like, oh, really? So to my friends who aren't in the industry, and to my friends who have never ever been in the industry and who've listened to the podcast, that surprises me the most. And it surprises me when big those big gyms listen, right? Victor Rosario texted me the other day, and me and Victor aren't friends. I don't even say friends. I have his number, he has my number, and if I run into him, I say hi and what's up. But we're not friends, right? And so, but I'm cool. I love Victor. I think he's an awesome guy. But he texts me a few weeks, a couple months ago, and I had said something on the podcast, and he texted me. What'd I say? It was when I had used the word zeitgeist. I was like, zeitgeist, blah, 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 blah. And he texted me, and he's like, thanks for teaching me what the word zeitgeist means. And I was like, oh, Victor listened to this episode, right? And so that stuff always surprises me, just the people who do listen. And so if you listen, I really do appreciate it. It's super cool when people, it still is cool to this day when people tell me they actually listen to the podcast. So, that's been really cool and a lot of fun that we actually have real listeners. And, I guess that's the most unexpected thing, is that we actually have people that listen. 2 more questions. Looking back, what are some things that you would have done differently when first starting the podcast? And what have you learned from those experiences? Two things definitely come to mind that I would change when it comes to the podcast. Or first starting the podcast. I would have started the Instagram a lot sooner. I just started it in late November, and shout out to Claire, who's been doing a fantastic job. I mentioned this a few episodes ago, but Claire, former coach of ours and hopefully future coach of ours again. But Claire, former coach of ours here at American, she went to study abroad in England, York to be exact, and so she's no longer coaching with us, but she's still, she's still family. And she went to go study social media, right? And I was like, hey, she's studying social media, and we have this Instagram account. Claire, it'd be great. You want to, help run an Instagram account? And she's like, sure, I'd love to. And so we started it. I think I started the Instagram in November, and I think she started posting in January, like early January. And it's just like been going, right? And it's just been taking off, and it's been great, and she's been doing a great job with the Instagram. And so we're at like 4,500 or so, maybe not quite 40. We're not quite 4,500, but just about 4,500 followers on Instagram. And we just started it, late. No, it was like November 25th to be exact, like our first post, right? And so I wish I would have started that sooner. The other thing, but really when it comes to the podcast, the thing I really wish I would have done sooner was get a real microphone, right? Like now I have a real microphone, and at first, and I get it. The first few episodes I'm recording with my phone. I'm not sure if I'm going to do this or not. So I'm recording on my phone in the closet, and it's just all, whatever. But after I got a few episodes, after I'm 20 episodes in, I should have gotten like a real microphone. And I had the other microphone for a while, but it just wasn't a real quality mic. Like, not like the one I have now, right? And so I wish I would have gotten a better microphone sooner. But my wife will tell you, I'm freaking cheap. Like, not cheap. I'm just so frugal. Like, I just don't want to spend any money. Like, I try to save every dollar I can. Not like save like hey, save 30 cents here. I just don't like to spend money. I'm just so frugal. And so I'm like, no, my phone's good enough. I went so long trying not to spend any money on this podcast. As you guys know, if you've listened for any amount of time, I've started like kind of taking up golf, right? And so I always tell my brother-in-law I'm on a never-ending quest to never have to buy golf balls myself. Like, I don't want to have to ever buy golf balls. And so, we're on the course. If I see a golf ball out there, like a stray, I'm like, oh, picking this up because I just don't want to spend any money. I'm that guy. So there we go. So guys, hey guys, thanks for all your donations. They really do go towards, getting a microphone. Now we use Riverside FM, which helps, Brittany and I were recording on Zoom, and that was terrible. Those episodes were not good when we were recording on Zoom. So now we have Riverside, which is significantly better than Zoom. It does cost money though. I have the nice microphone, got a real camera now, and I wish I would have done those things a little bit sooner. But here we are. We're here now, and we're all good. What have I learned? I've learned a lot about podcasting. I don't know. I'm not sure if I really want to answer that. My show, I can do what I want. All right. What are your goals for the podcast moving forward? And how do you plan to continue growing and evolving the show? What are my goals moving forward? I just want to have a quality show. That's what I really want. Like, my real goal is just to have a quality show that people really enjoy. and I didn't bring this up when I thought I was going to, so I'm going to bring it up now. But I know that we are a part of your lives, right? There's a lot of you guys, some of you guys, your first episode listening, or maybe first few episodes, and so maybe we're not part of your life yet, but I know there's a lot of you that we really are a part of your weekly lives, right? I watch 2 shows on YouTube. They're TV shows, but I watch them on YouTube. Undisputed, with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp, and then First Things First with Kevin Wilde and Kevin Broussard, Chris Broussard, and Nick Wright. And they're both sports debate talk shows, right? And they come on Monday through Friday. And so Monday through Friday, I drive my wife crazy because I listen to these sports debate talk shows every morning and throughout my entire day. And right. And, Chris Broussard is a part of my life, and Skip Bayless is a part of my life. And they're a part of like my, when I'm cleaning, my room or making my bed or brushing my teeth or whatever I'm doing, like they're a part of my life. And I know that, if you're a Tuesday listener when the episode releases, that, I'm part of your Tuesday commute to work, or that I'm part of your Tuesday laundry day, or whatever the case may be. And so I hope that, one, that we are, that we keep you entertained. I hope that, that you're able, like, to the parents and the coaches and owners that listen, that you actually learn something from the podcast. I hope that I share a different perspective for you, that you actually go, okay, yeah, I never thought of it like that. It's a good way of looking at it. Or that I am able to confirm a perspective for you. Like, oh yeah, like I feel like I'm not crazy. I feel the same exact way, Jason. Like, thank you for, making sure that I'm, making me feel not alone. And so I really hope that we can just continue to have a quality show, and that we can make a quality show, make it better and better. And, goals moving forward, we gotta figure out how to like really monetize this thing, right? And I always say this to our staff. It's the same thing I tell them about winning, same thing about like money. Like, money is not the most important thing, but it is an important thing, right? I always tell them, like, do you like eating? Do you like having a roof over your head? Well, those things come from money. And we gotta figure out how to, we can't be afraid of making it if we're gonna be able, if we're gonna eat or survive or do all these things. So the way that the podcast survives is if it can actually generate money. Now, it doesn't need to generate huge amounts of profits, but it needs to figure out. There are lots of content creators who are, like I said, I mentioned this earlier, Riverside, the app we use to, or the platform we use to like record the podcast, that costs money. I need to buy Brittany a new microphone, guys. Thanks for reminding me. I gotta buy Brittany a new microphone. I gotta put that on the to-do list. But that comes from money, right? And so I don't want to go broke making a podcast. So anyway, I gotta figure out how to make money off the podcast. So that's a goal. If you have ideas, you let me know. I didn't write these questions down, nor have I thought about them too much, but I ask them every episode, so I figure I should answer them myself. One needs to start, stop, or change in the industry. Don't know. Like I said, I didn't write it down, so I haven't even thought about it. But then I thought about, I should answer it. One needs to stop, or change in the industry. we've got to stop blaming the score sheet for all of our problems. We've got to stop blaming the score sheet for all of our problems. That's one thing. Start, stop, change. Oh man, I'm so glad I thought of this. I heard this idea years ago, and it's probably better if I do this on a connection call. But I at least got to get this idea out there, because if I say it now, maybe someone else is going to hear it. Maybe someone else will say it again, just in case I don't do it on a connection call one day. But I heard another coach say this, and it never happened, but I thought it was a fantastic idea. And I heard this years ago. That gyms who are part of the USASF, right? That the USASF should charge another fee, or that they should use the money we already pay to do this. But that the USASF should take money, right, from all the gyms that are members and put on a national commercial for all-star cheerleading, right? So the USASF would do a commercial that says, like, all-star cheerleading is so good for the youth. Show some people flipping and, just a standard commercial, but not promoting any specific gym, just promoting all-star cheer in general. And then at the end of the commercial, it goes, go to USASF, .net to find a gym near you, right? And so, we'd see the same commercial here in California, and someone in Bakersfield would go, oh, let me click on it. My zip code is 93312. And then they'd go, oh, looks like there are 3 gyms in Bakersfield, 3 USASF gyms in Bakersfield. And then, then those parents would do their due diligence and figure out which gym they want to be a part of. And, gyms in Texas would go, hey, I live in this zip code, and go, oh man, looks like there's lots of gyms here in Houston. And, and then parents would do their due diligence to figure out which gym specifically they'd want to go to. But I thought that was such a cool idea. So I think we should make it happen. Someone else back me up. I got to bring that up at a connection call. And if someone else hears this and you have something to do with the USASF, you should promote this idea. I thought it was such a great idea. Start, stop, or change. Oh no, those are my two. That's what else do I ask people? Any myths, narratives, or rumors? Oh, I wish I would have thought about this before I asked this to myself. I don't know. Man, I wish I would have thought about this. Myths, narratives, or rumors? That I want to debunk. Nope. If I come up with it one day, I'll be sure to shout it out on the podcast. Who should I have on the podcast one day? I already told you, Justin Carrier. I'm trying to think if there's someone else. Already have someone else coming on the pod who's up there. Oh, let me look at my list. I actually have a list of people that I want on the podcast. I need someone, or really someone from the USASF to come on. Yeah. And that, I'll just keep interviewing my friends. But Jordan wants me to do East Coast people, so I'm going to move out to the East Coast. I had Casey Cloutier. She was going to come on, but then we couldn't get dates squared away. She coaches at CEA. So she's probably going to come on sometime. We don't have a date yet, but she's going to come on soon. So, yeah, but we're going to branch out to the East Coast. And then someone from the USASF. Shay mentioned Dana, and I ran into Dana at Jams. I was like, Dana, you should come on the pod. So I actually think she might come on too. So it'd be really cool to get Dana on. Yeah, and then we'll figure it out. What's the other question I ask everyone? Oh, you know what? I have those written down somewhere. Oh, where can people follow you online? You can follow me. If you want to follow me, you can follow me, JasonLarkins, on Instagram and Twitter. I don't tweet anymore, so do not follow me on Twitter because I have not tweeted in a very, very, very long time. Probably since 2020 is the last time I tweeted. Instagram at JasonLarkins. TikTok, JasonC.Larkins. And then on YouTube, I'm sure if you just type in Let's Talk Cheer, you'll find us there. And then we have the Let's_Talk_Cheer_podcast on Instagram as well. And then on Facebook, Jason C. Larkins. So that's where you can follow me. You can follow the gym at American Cheer __. Again, that's on Instagram. And yeah, I guess that's it, guys. Episode 99. It's been fun, guys. I've had a lot of fun doing the podcast, 99 episodes in, and it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for all of your support. It truly means a lot. It has been a ton of fun. I love it. And I'll see you guys next week. 5, 6, 7, 8. We're out.